Good morning, Rock Church. You don't realize how much you miss somebody until they're not here, right? I miss Jim this morning. Jim, if you're watching the live stream, I miss your live music. It seems like it's a little harder to get into it with YouTube. I can't believe that we did. That's the only way we had music for a long time. So anyway, I thank God for YouTube and all those original artists that help us get through the times when somebody's not live. My wife stepped over close to me a minute ago and she said, "Can you imagine about 30 people up there singing that song? Wouldn't that be awesome?" So that's what we need to work on. We need about 30 people up here singing and helping us all to get connected and involved. But I do miss you, Jim. Wish you were here. I know you're having fun where you are. I hope you are anyway. Good to have our buddy Jeff back with us today. We all know he's been through some surgery, had a hard go for a little bit, but I'm glad to see him back sitting here with us this morning. So it's November. Not much longer now. Not much longer till the day we've been waiting for, right? Yep, Thanksgiving will be here before you know it. Were y'all thinking something else? Well, you know, we've skipped a lot of things this year, so I'm going to skip Election Day and I'm going to go right on to Thanksgiving. How's that? Sounds great. Can we just do that? I mean, yeah. I know there's been a lot of anticipation, maybe even fear and dread, maybe for multiple reasons, about Election Day that's coming up. And I do believe that it's important that all of us vote. I mean, that is our right and our privilege and our responsibility, I think. And if you've not voted, which most people probably already have by now, except for me, I'm walking in on Election Day just like I always do, and that's when I'm going to cast my vote. So if you've not voted yet, make sure you do that, because I think that is not only our privilege, but it's our responsibility as citizens and as Christians that we make sure we cast our vote. So we've been looking forward to maybe, or maybe not with anticipation so much, but we may not know the answer that we're looking for a while. And that answer is, are we going to have a new Speaker of the House? Oh, no, it's the President, right? Anyway, we'll skip through some of that. I want to encourage you that we don't forget who we are. You know, it is important that we make sure that we, in our minds, stay as connected as we can be, and our hearts to God and the godly things. So in 2 days, there's a possibility that we may have a new president, or we may have the same one that we have for 4 more years. And so I don't know, and let me say this. Most of you know what my beliefs and thoughts are, but the Rock Church is not built on politics. I don't care which side of the line you stand on, you're always welcome here. If I say something maybe that looks like it's swayed one way or the other, then, you're welcome to say something to me about it if you want to. But if anybody gets their feelings hurt and leaves here, or chooses not to come back because of something political, that'd be your choice. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I love you in Jesus the same way. It doesn't matter to me.
That's right.
Who you are or where you stand. And you know what? I would go to battle for you to have the right to have your opinion. And we all have our opinions. So it's almost over. Hopefully we're not going to be inundated with. Do you ever remember an election where our brains have been bombarded with so much stuff for so long? I mean, it seems like we've been in shutdown and lockdown, not only for the coronavirus, but politically speaking, for way too long. And so I told some people this morning there's a struggle this morning between here and here. You know, there's kind of a divide there. I can't really with peace of mind, not say some of the things that I want to say today. But at the same time, I know that there's a good possibility that people are about done with some of the things that I want to talk about. So I don't want to, I just need to walk a narrow way today. So there is a possibility that there would be a change in the face of the United States of America coming soon. We know that. I mean, there's a possibility that that could be the case. And so, over the years, even, I'm going to go back in a minute and compare us to Israel back in the Bible days. But we need to understand that it's not so much politics as it is a godly choice where we stand. And I'm not necessarily talking about an election right now. I'm talking about where we live our lives day to day. I'm talking about who we are as Christians, who we identify with and as Christian people. So there's a possibility that fundamentally the face of our country could change somewhat, because there are things up like changing the Constitution, changing the flag, changing different things that we know are been used to for all these years. So, and most of you know that I'm kind of the mind, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so there are some things that are maybe up for grabs and negotiation that maybe shouldn't be. And one of those is the Constitution. And I plan in my lifetime, no matter even if it does change, to live by what the supreme law of the land, the Constitution of the United States, guarantees me. Now, the reason why I want to say that that's so important today is because of what I'm doing right now and what you're doing. One of the reasons why there's the United States of America is because people wanted the freedom to worship. And it doesn't matter to me if you're a Christian or a Muslim or who you are. I think we all have the same right to worship the way that we want to. And so one of the things that's so very important to me, don't worry, I'm not going to read all this. Do you know what the First Amendment says? Do you know what it says? It's the freedom of religion, speech, and the press. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of press, or the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So basically, what that says is that we have the right to worship the God that we want to worship the way that we want to. So that's one of the reasons why I feel that it's so important that we be aware of what the issues are and that we cast our vote accordingly. So that's something that we're guaranteed by our Creator, not by a politician. So going from there, I want us to know if you pull my slide up. 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 4 and 5 says this. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, Behold, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations. Now, what I want to point out there is the Bible is not silent on politics. The Bible does, it gives us some information on exactly how God intends for it to run, and I think that that's what we need to be careful. Now, Israel, as you may or may not know, was a theocracy. You know what that means? It means that they, up to this point, had not had a king. They had judges, and they were appointed. Basically, God was the ruling, or the head, the ruling person of Israel up to this point. And Samuel was the judge. And in verses number 1 through 3 there of 1 Samuel chapter 8, they come to him and they say, Samuel, you're old, and your days are numbered, and we realize that you've appointed your 2 sons to rule over us, but they don't walk in your ways. They're not godly men. And so we ask that you give us a king. So in verses 4 through 6, the elders come to Samuel, and Samuel prayed. He said to God, your people are asking to have me removed and to have a king placed over them. And God said this to Samuel. They're not asking for you to be replaced or rejecting you. They're actually rejecting me. And they have rejected me ever since the time that I brought them up out of Israel. They have chosen to follow other gods, and they've lived their lives in an ungodly manner. So it's not you necessarily, Samuel, that they're asking to be removed or replaced. It's me. And so that's kind of the background of what I want to talk about this morning. I want to for a few minutes touch on be careful what you ask for. Mm-hmm. Be careful what you ask for, because I believe that the outcome of an election is not so much based on what happened over the last 4 years. It's over a bigger period of time. I believe that we live our lives the way that we choose, and then just like the Israelites did, they'd have a godly king for a while, and then basically things were going good, and they turned their back on God, and they didn't want anything to do with God. And so then the next king maybe would be an ungodly king who would come and you know, they didn't have it so good. So you could kind of like compare that to how it is in the United States of America or in the world today, because I believe that God will only let us go so far. He's only going to let us get so ungodly till He's going to reel us back in, and there might be a number of different ways how He would do that. So I'm going to just kind of work my way through 1 Samuel, and we're just going to kind of see what happened with the Israelites and kind of compare it. Maybe we can gain some information from what we see there. So careful what you ask for. The people rejected God, and verse number 1 of 1 Samuel, and if you're with your Bible app, or you can, all this is not going to be up on the screen, so if you want to turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 8, it says, when Samuel became old, he made his sons judge over Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second was Abijah. And they were judges in Beersheba. Yet his sons did not walk in his ways and turned aside after gain. They took bribes and perverted justice. Does that sound maybe a little bit familiar today? I mean, we look at how things were then and how they are now, and there's a pretty close comparison. And then in verse 4 it says, then the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel and said to him, behold, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a king to judge us like all the nations. Now what I'm talking about is be careful what you ask for. And what we need to understand is that the situation was that God was the one who was ruling over Israel at the time. There was not a better king. There was not a better judge. There was no one that was going to have things work out for them in a better way than they were at that point. So they wanted to be like everybody else. And I think that's one of our problems in our world today is we kind of want to fit in. Even as a nation, we want to kind of be like everybody else is. And that's not necessarily always a good thing, because a lot of times the godly way is not the way that everybody else is headed. So we need to be careful what we ask for. It says, but the thing displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. According to all the deeds that they have done, from the day I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now then, obey their voice. Only you shall solemnly warn them and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them. So, the comparison that I want to make, and when I say be careful what you ask for, I believe that if we're not careful in this country, we may get what we ask for because, and it's not necessarily a politician or a group of people or even the Republicans or the Democrats or whoever you might identify with. It's not necessarily that situation has brought us where we are. It's our hearts. It's us as people. It's us as citizens of this country, I believe, that have brought us, and including myself, to the point to where we are today. Right. So we need to be careful what we're asking for. When we ask for things to be so dramatically changed, we as a nation have. How many of you have seen the bumper stickers and things over the years that say "God bless America"? Mm. How many of you would agree that we have been God blessed? Yeah. This country has been blessed. God has blessed us through a lot of things, and a lot of times when we didn't deserve it, and a lot of times when maybe we chose other things over Him. God has blessed us and kept us and protected us. Now, in a minute, I want to kind of walk through, like I said, some more of this chapter in 1 Samuel. The people rejected God. They went godless. Israel thought that they had it bad. They thought that Joel and Abijah were not saints. But God was watching over and ruling over them, and they couldn't see it. And I believe He has His hand on us, and He's, like all these months that we've met together on Monday mornings, and kind of like our theme was 2 Chronicles 7:14. And I believe that we are at a turning point. I believe we're at a pivot point in our country where God has given us an opportunity to choose Him or to reject Him. Kind of like the Israelites were in the text that we just read. Yeah, they had some corrupt politicians. There were people there that were ruling over them, that were selfish and doing things for their own gain. But still yet, they had God that was in total control. And that's exactly how it is with us. No matter who's sitting in the White House, God's still sitting on the throne. He's still in charge. He still has His hand on us. And He's still the one that's protecting us, such as they were then. And then Samuel, it says, Samuel prayed to the Lord, and God said to them, give them what they want. For they have rejected God from day one, forsaking God and serving other gods. So He said, obey their voice. Only you shall solemnly warn them when you show them the ways of the king that shall reign over them. And here's the comparison I want to make. And like I said, there's a struggle between my brain and my head today. It's kind of like they're not connected. We've been about rejecting God for the past 50 or 60 years. And most of us that are that old could see it. Little by little and through our actions of serving strange gods, we've come to the place where we think we've outgrown God. And want God out of our way. We've chosen the godless. We've sacrificed human babies through abortion to Satan. We choose an alternate or a homosexual lifestyle. We choose sexual perversion, whatever lifestyle it would be, and tell God to get out of the way. That's kind of where we've stood for the way we've been going toward for the last 50 to 60 years. And basically what we're saying is, God, give us a king that supports our wicked ways. We don't care what you think, God. We don't care what you want. We want what we want. And kind of that's where we are. And Samuel gives a warning. And here's the warning that he says. So Samuel told the words of the Lord to the people who were asking for a king from him. He said, "These will be the ways of the king that will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots, and to be horsemen, and to run before chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders and thousands of commanders and 50s, and some to plow his ground and to reap his harvest, and to make his implements of war, and the equipment of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards, and give them to his servants. He will take the tenth of your grain and your vineyards, and give it to his officers and servants. He will take you and make servants and male servants, and the best of your young men and your donkeys, and put them to work. He will take a tenth of your flock, and you shall be his slaves." So that was the warning that Samuel gave. He said, okay, if you choose to not have God to be your ruler, if you choose to not have God be the one that's actively ruling over your people, then this is what you're going to get. And then the part that I want to, at the end of that it says, "And in that day, the people will cry out because of their king, but God will not answer." God has given them, he gave them the chance to come back to him. And that's kind of where we are. We have a choice in our hearts, and we have a choice in our decisions that would either choose God or reject God. And so 2 Chronicles 7:14, "If my people who were called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and heal their land." And that's kind of where I want to leave us today, as far as who is it that's really in control? Who's in charge of what's happening in our country and in our world today? Well, we may think that it's a politician. We may think that it's a political party. But it's God who's ultimately in charge. And he's the one that's in control of who we are and what happens in this country. And so, if my people, and that's us, you and I, if my people who are called by my name, and we're called, if we're Christian people, we're called by his name. And what I want to do here in just a minute, I want to give us as a whole an opportunity to come and humble ourselves before God. And I've not really pushed anything like this before, kind of just, this altar's always open, but I want us to have an opportunity as a corporate group of worshipers to come and humble ourselves before God and to seek his face and turn from our wicked ways. And like I said, in a couple of days, the election's going to be over, and all of us going to be said and done. But I want us to come here in just a minute. We're going to have our closing song here in just a minute. And I want us to be able to spend some time, maybe just come down to this altar, get down on our knees, or maybe where you are, and just pray for our nation. Pray that God would ultimately continue to guide us, even though maybe we've turned our wicked hearts toward him and said, we don't want you anymore, God. We want a king. We want to choose what we want. And so we're going to have if you would just stand, we're going to have our closing song. And I want to invite all of you to come to this altar or pray where you are. and just leave it in God's hands that the right thing's going to be done, and that ultimately He's going to be honored and He's going to be glorified.